Hi! Today I'm gonna show you how to knit this seamless, size adjustable cable dog sweater. Let's get started. Please check my description box for all the detail such as yarn, needle, and written pattern. As you can see, it's a little bit complicated design, so if you never knit the dog sweater, please go check my basic dog sweater tutorial. Couple new techniques. Number one, stretchy cast on. It's quite stretchy and you don't feel any tension. Here is my old dog sweater, which is just a regular cast on. Stretchy, but you feel tension at the end. So if you have a dog like a bulldog, a quite big head, a very thick neck, maybe stretchy cast on technique would be ideal. My dog is skinny, so I don't really have to, but when I think about the bigger dog, I think this is a good idea. And whenever you want to knit the baby sweater or kid sweater, definitely you should use this technique. They don't like tense neck. Especially for the baby, they usually have the opening on the side of the neck because they have a bigger head compared to neck, right? So definitely you should go for it. And the other technique is the other side. Stretchy neck and stretchy bottom. And this called stretchy bind off. It's quite stretchy, and again, no tension you feel. And this is old dog sweater with the regular bind off, stretchy, but still tension as you can see. So my dog, again, very skinny, so I don't really have to do this. But, if you have a big, chunky dog, maybe this is good idea to do it. If you don't like this technique, you don't need to. Or you can use the one size bigger needle, but it looks a little bit loose if you use the bigger needle. Now, let's talk about the design part. As you can see, it looks a little bit like 3D texture. There. And I use knit back loop technique, not just a regular knitting technique. If you use the knit back loop technique with purl, it looks like 3D. And here and there is few difficult cable technique. And don't worry about it. I'll show you very slowly. And bubble. As you can see, there's lots of bubble. And I use crochet technique bubble. I tried with the knitting bubble. I didn't like it. So you really want to try crochet bubble. And both side, it's easy, just a cable for front and back. It's just a different way to create that a little different shape of the cable. And front piece, this is completely same as my basic sweater. After the rib, you have to increase the stitches towards the leg, and after the leg opening, just knit until the front piece is done, and then you have to knit separately for a little while, then reconnect. That's about it. All right, so let's start knitting. stretchy cast on. Multiple of 2, I made 80. As you can see, this is same as usual, but the needle movement, you gotta see. Needle go underneath of both two yarn and create the extra twist. Then cast on. One more time, go underneath and cast on. One more, you just have to kind of straight that out. Go under, then create the twist extra yarn and straight that out. See? Then cast on. That's about it. And again, I made 80 cast on because I need 42 stitch for the back design, and I'm using number 3 yarn, which is thinner than usual. I usually use number 4 yarn, but this time I use number 3. And people ask how many casts should I start? It's really up to your dog and needle size, also the yarn size. Maybe you have to try many times. Well, at least couple. After cast on, rib row. Repeat off, knit 1 and purl 1 until your desired length. I made about 2 inch. And I am going to use magic loop technique because I'm using longer cable. And if you never tried the magic loop technique, I put the link in my description box so you can, watch and, practice. And from the second row, it's easy. Knit over knit stitch and purl over purl stitch. Another word, you have to be very careful on first row. Just repeat off, knit 1 and purl 1. Again, I knitted it about 2 inch, but it's really up to you. Let's add some markers if you have a pin type of the marker. But if you don't, next round should be all knit, so you can add while you're knitting. First of all, you have to divide by front piece and back piece. And you're looking at the first stitch. That's the start, first stitch. After the first stitch, you add 1 marker and 1 stitch in between those 2 markers. That's gonna be the mid chest stitch. Again, 2 orange markers divided by front and back piece. The bottom pieces back and top pieces front. You have to count from the mid stitch both sides evenly, then divide by front and back. By the way, stitch count for front and back piece, it's not even for me because I need 42 for the back. Anyway, let's start. Set up row, all knit, and then if you don't have the pin type marker, now is the time you add marker. Knit 1, then place the 1 marker, and then knit 1 more, place second marker, that's going to be mid chest stitch, and knit around, but again you have to count evenly and then add side markers and leash marker as well. Here is my leash marker. that's actually right in the middle of the back piece. Okay, the leash opening row number 1, you just have to bind off, and this is right after the rib, so I am going to knit 1, purl 1, bind off. And this is actually up to you, but for me, I have 16 stitch to bind off. One thing you have to be very careful, once you hit the second leash marker, you need to bind off one more stitch. I'll tell you when exactly, and I'm just doing, knit 1 and purl 1 binding off until you hit the second marker. And again, if you never knit my basic dog sweater, maybe you should knit basic one first, so you will know what I'm doing here. And then leash row number 2 is easy. Add new cast. I bind off 16, so whenever I have to add new cast, has to be same number, 16 new cast. That's about it. And this method you have to remember, because this is exactly same method as leg opening. All right. Anyway, I'm reaching last stitch here. There you go. And then second marker. But you have one stitch on the right needle. This is the last stitch you have to bind off. So you make a purl, then one more bind off. This is it. Okay, that's gonna be 16 stitch. Then knit until the front. Now increasing row starts, increasing around the chest area. Okay, always outside of the markers. The mid stitch has to be one stitch all the time. Okay, so if you increase mid stitch, that's you do something wrong. Anyway, increasing row number 1, knit, then marker. So using the running thread, you have to do make one right. Pick up the running thread like that and hook onto your left needle, then knit right there. You gotta be very careful. The difference between make one right and left is how you pick up the running thread. Anyway, slide the marker, knit 1, slide second marker, and make one left here. So with the left needle, you pick up the running thread like that from front to back, then back loop, you have to knit 1 there. There we go. This is the make 1 left. Then you knit until begin marker. You increase only chest area, which is just outside of the markers. Everything else is just knit. And here comes leash opening, second row. You bind off in previous row. Now you add new cast. Again, I bind off 16 stitch, so I am going to add 16 new cast. And this is the way you have to add new cast. Easy. Just use your digital finger and wrap it up and just hook onto the right needle. That's about it. If this is too fast, you have to adjust the speed, and you can actually watch slowly. All right, but probably you know what I'm doing. And then keep knitting. Just pretend nothing happened. All right, and back design, I'm not starting yet because the leash opening is kind of loose, so I'm waiting for the leash opening is kind of solid. Anyway, increasing row number 2 for the chest, just all knit. And for the chest increasing, you have to repeat row number 1 and row number 2 until the length hits the top of the dog's front leg. And I will put the picture later on. You will see what do you mean by hit the top of the dog's leg. All right, so just keep increasing and knitting. And now after this row, the leash opening is solid, so back design will start. Okay, now let's add markers again. All right, the mid stitch you're not going to change. Again, just ignore whatever you're doing for the back piece. Just repeat row 1 and row 2. And for the back piece, I have a 42 stitch. And you have to divide by 3 sections and 14 stitch each, every section. Okay? That's 14. It's not a leash opening marker anymore. Back design. 14 stitch each section, 3 of them. 14 times 3 is 42. Anyway, before I go on the back design, I'll show you one more time how to do make one right and make one left, for just in case. So this is increasing row number 1, knit until the marker. And picking up the running thread and hook onto the left needle like that. Then knit that stitch. This is make one right. And slide the marker, knit the mid stitch, slide another marker, and make one left from front to back with left needle like that. And now you knit back loop. This is make one left. Now let's talk about back design. Okay, so right side 14 stitch and left side 14 stitch, same design. Mid part, again 14 stitch. This is going to be tree design. So let's start with side cable design. Cable row number 1. Okay, after the marker, purl 1 to start. Then KBL means knit back loop. Use back loop like that. Again. There you go, back loop, knit. Purl 1, knit 8. Very simple. And again, the last 14 stitch, you have to use same pattern. Okay, only mid pattern is the different pattern, tree design I call, right? So again, purl 1 and knit back loop. There you go. Then purl 1. And let's go to the tree row number 1. Very easy. Row number 1. Purl 3. And then knit back loop. After purl 3, knit back loop once, and then knit, oh sorry, purl 2, knit back loop twice, very straightforward, and purl 2, knit back loop, then purl 3. Again, I have written pattern in my description box. You have to print that out. The way you print it out, you can make copy and paste on the Word or something and print it out. And you have to read my written pattern and then knit. Okay, and the last 14 stitch, again, same as the first 14 stitch, which is cable 4 pattern. So purl 1 to start and knit back loop. Just, follow my written pattern. And I'm not gonna tell you every rows, okay? If there's a new technique, I will show it to you, okay? And everything else you can actually knit. Cable row number 2, which is both side, purl 1 to start, and knit back loop, KBL, it's piece of cake, and then purl 1. After purl 1, there's the C4F and C4B, so I will show you. C4F, which means cable 4 front. Pick up 2 stitch on the cable needle and put it out front, and then knit 2 from the left needle. There you go. So now you're twisting. Then knit 2 from the cable needle. This is cable 4 front. And right after cable 4 front, you have to do cable 4 back. You probably have some kind of the idea now what to do. Cable 4 back, you just have to pick 2 stitch up with the cable needle like that and put the cable needle at the back. Then knit 2 from left needle, then come back to the cable needle, then knit 2 from cable needle. That's about it. And then after C4B, you just have to make purl 1 KBL and purl 1. I believe you can knit cable 4 design because everything else is straightforward. And this cable 4 design complete on row number 8. So you just have to repeat row number 1 to row number 8 until your desired length. That's it. For the tree design midsection, they have a different pattern, right? So you really have to be careful. Don't get confused, okay? Okay, let me show you again cable 4 front and cable 4 back. First, cable 4 front. Pick up 2 stitch on cable needle and put out front because C4F, and then knit 2 from left needle, then come back to cable needle and knit 2 from cable needle. That's the C4F. And if you put the needle out front, the stitch shifting left side, if you really want to know, and back shifting right side. Cable 4B, pick up 2 stitch on cable needle and put out back, then knit 2 from left needle, then come back to cable, then knit 2 from cable needle. This is C4B. And let's move on to the tree design. row number 4, I believe. Tree design row number 4. Crochet bubble to start. The first stitch will be bubble. So put the crochet hook into the first stitch as you see. That's the first stitch. You need to create the bubble. So put the crochet hook into the first stitch like that and drop that stitch off. Then make chain 3. Do not drop any stitch off from the needle. 1, 2, and 3. One more. I'm sorry, it's tough to see right now. There you go. And then halfway of half double crochet. So grab the yarn and go through the hole and then pull through 1. And now 3 on the hook and do 1 more time. There you go. So now you have 5 stitch on the hook and grab the yarn and pull through whole stitch, 5 of them like that. There you go. Then there's the previous stitch underneath. That's the previous purl stitch. Put the hook like that and make a slip stitch. 1 and the other one too. 1 more slip. That creates the bubble. There we go. And you need to put the stitch onto right needle, just like that. There you go. And take the crochet hook out. Then there is the bubble. Then after the bubble, you have to make purl 2. And you really have to see this. First of all, working yarn should be out front like that. Then go top of the bubble. You kind of pull tightly and then go top on the bubble. Then purl 1. So the bubble won't move too much. Now, there you go. So you create the bubble and then you make the purl 2. So the bubble stay there. Now you will do design A. You need cable needle again. Cable A. Pick 1 stitch on cable needle and put out front. And then purl 2 from left needle. Then KBL on cable needle. That's it for A stitch. In this pattern, there's only 3 stitch. It's a little bit complicated, which is crochet bubble and stitch D and E. That's about it. And everything else is very straightforward. Okay, I'm actually doing knit back loop on cable needle. There you go. This is the end of the A stitch. And after that, knit back loop twice. I'm just making sure I'm doing right thing. Okay, bubble and then purl 2 and A stitch, which is 3 stitch total. And now knit back loop twice, then now B stitch coming up. And again, B stitch is very easy, pretty much same as A stitch, a little bit different. With the cable needle, pick up the 2 stitch from left needle and put out back. All right, and then knit back loop KBL from left needle and then purl 2 on cable needle. That's about it. I'm just doing the knit back loop, and then now come back to the cable, then purl 2. That's it. You know, I'm a little bit struggle right now. That's because on top of the leash opening, it kind of loose. But you know, just take your time. Once your finger or hand gets used to, it's gonna be easy. All right. So after B stitch, purl 2, then here comes crochet bubble. Let's do one more time. That's the last stitch you need for the crochet bubble. Okay, with the crochet hook, put the crochet hook into the last stitch and then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Then at the bottom, halfway of the half double crochet, pull through and 3 stitch on the hook right now, and one more, grab and then put it in and grab it. Now 5 stitch on the hook and pull the yarn through those 5 stitch. And this is not finished yet, but you know, you create the formation of the bubble, and the stitch, previous stitch underneath, you put the hook through, there you go, and you have to slip stitch those 2 stitch, there you go, and create the bubble completely, and put the stitch onto the right needle. Then next 14 stitch, start with probably purl 1. Yes, so put the marker right after this crochet bubble, and then purl 1. Okay, go on top of the bubble, there you go, and then purl 1. Okay, so this is 2 bubbles looks like. You can't really see at this moment, but once you're knitting more and more, it's more visible. So let's go on. So now tree design rule number 6. A stitch, slip 1 on the cable needle and out front, then purl 2 from left needle, then come back to cable needle and KBL. And again, everything in my description box, so you don't have to worry about anything. Anyway, this is the KBL on the cable needle. After a stitch, you have to make purl 2. Then here comes D and E. I didn't really love that stitch, but it's necessary. So let's start D and E. And if you need to, you might want to practice a little bit. All right, so here comes D. Pick up 1 stitch with cable needle and put out front, and KBL from left needle. And after KBL, do not drop off that stitch yet. Before you dropping any stitch off from the left needle, come to the cable needle and make KBL from cable needle. After you make 2 KBL from left end cable needle. Now you drop 2 stitch off. This is the D stitch, okay? And E stitch, pretty much same, just where you put the cable needle, that's the only difference. So E, pick up 1 stitch with cable needle and put it at the back. And same thing, you have to do KBL from left needle and do not drop stitch off. Okay, there we go. KBL. Then come back to cable needle before you drop any stitch off, okay? And KBL from cable needle. Just take your time. And now you made 2 KBL, one from the left and one from the cable. So now you drop 2 stitch off. This is E. I'll show you D and E once again later, okay? So don't worry about it. And then purl 2, then B stitch. You already know how to do it, but I'll show you one more time. B stitch, pick up 2 with the cable needle and put at the back, and then 1 KBL from left needle and purl 2 on cable needle. That's it. All right, it's very easy. So again, D and E is little tricky, but if you take your time and go slowly, you don't really have to worry about. Okay, so this is end of the B stitch, which is purl 2 on the cable needle. Again, after I introduce stitch F and G, I will show you how to do D and E stitch again, so don't worry about it. And the rest is last 14 stitch. So now tree design row 10, F and G kicks in, purl 4 to start, and F stitch is easy, but little bit of mixed. So that's the only thing you have to be careful. Slip 1 or pick 1 with the cable needle and put the cable needle out front, and then 1 KBL and purl 1 from left needle. So 2 stitch but mixed. 1 cable, 1 KBL and 1 purl from left needle, then KBL from cable needle. This is F stitch, easy. And then G stitch, pick 2 on the cable needle and then put at the back, 1 KBL from left needle, then purl 1 and KBL from left needle. That's about it. And after G stitch, purl 4 to finish this row. And one more thing I want to tell you, KBL, knit back loop. Do not make just a regular knit. If you do knit, you don't really see 3D texture. Has to be KBL if it says KBL. Here comes crochet bubble. Zoom up a bit. With crochet hook, put the crochet hook into the stitch you have to create the bubble, and drop that stitch off from the left needle, and the hole in the crochet hook in, you have to create chain 3. Let's do that. 1, 2, one more, 3. It's kind of awkward, but just take your time. And then halfway of half double crochet. Grab the yarn like that, go into that hole, and then grab yarn and pull through that hole again and come back here and 3 stitch on the hook now. And grab the yarn like that and go to that hole and grab the yarn and pull through. This is halfway of half double crochet, and now 5 stitch on the hook and grab the yarn, and just be careful and pull through those 5 stitch at the same time to create the formation of the bubble and not finish that. Now you have to make a slip stitch with that previous stitch. Put the hook into the previous stitch like that, and now grab the yarn and pull through those 2 stitch on the hook, which call slip stitch. There you go. And one more. Then now this stitch go on to the right side of the needle, and now it's still kind of loose, so pull that working yarn hard and make the bubble stay out front, and then purl 1. When you make a purl 1, go on top of the bubble and make 1 so the bubble stays. There we go. This is how you do it. It's actually easy. And here comes the stitch. The stitch, pick up 1 stitch with cable needle and put out front, and 2 stitch you make both KBL from left needle. Do not drop any stitch off from the left needle yet. You just made the KBL, and then come back to cable needle, then KBL. There we go. So now 2 KBL on the right side, then you drop 2 stitch, 1 from the cable needle and 1 from the left needle. This is D stitch. And here comes E stitch. Pretty much same. Pick up 1 stitch and put at the back, and then KBL from left needle first. After you make KBL, do not drop any stitch off yet. Again, same thing. Come back to cable needle, and then KBL there. Knit back loop there. Take your time. It's a little bit tight. And I'm not showing you. I'm sorry, but it will come back. There you go. I just made the KBL from cable, so take the cable out and 1 stitch drop off from the left needle. That's it. And there we go. Check the length. And once you hit the length hit the top of the dog legs, that's the time you have to stop increasing and you create the leg hole. Now count from mid stitch evenly and add marker for leg opening. For me, in between the chest marker, there's 5 stitch and 5 stitch, total of 11 there, and then 20 stitch for each legs. There you go. And that's the begin marker, right? So begin marker is in the middle of the first leg. So I am going to do second leg first and then come back to do the first, right side of the leg. And again, leg opening is same method as leash opening. So first bind off and then second row add new cast. For me, I'm going to bind off 20 stitch, so I will add 20 stitch new cast. And here comes binding off. I am going to use stretchy bind off technique. Knit one, and before knit next one, I did yarn over and knit one. Then bind, yarn over, stitch off first, and then original stitch off. And then next one, same, yarn over and knit one, and bind, yarn over, stitch off, then original off. This create a very stretchy leg hole, just the top part, but the bottom part you just add new cast. New cast is kind of loose, so it's gonna be very stretchy leg hole and very comfortable for maybe dog. That's what I thought, so I add the new technique there. And there you go, the last stitch you have to be very careful. Here comes, that's the stretchy bind off for 20. See, very stretchy. Okay, then you go and do same thing for the other leg, and then please remember where your begin marker is. You have to count those stitch because you have to put the begin marker back later. Once you create the leg hole, you need to put the begin marker back. So anyway, and I'll show you again for the second row of the leg opening. That's it. It's very easy. Again, I bind off 20, so I will add 20 new cast on top of the bind off in previous row. And then after that, just pretend nothing happened and knit around and around. And after the leg opening, no more increase, and then keep just knitting for the back design. I think it's up to your dog, right? So that's pretty much it, and just keep knitting. And I put this on and make sure leg opening is big enough and all that. And here comes, I knit and long enough for tummy and not long enough for back. Well, because my dog is a boy, so I have to stop a little shorter for pee area. So this has to be on the right side in flat pattern. I just started the row number 10 for me, the tree design, and cable is whatever the row, but has to be right side in flat pattern. Anyway, so you just knit past the tummy section. I'm actually in the middle of the tummy, right? This is the just starting, row 10 uh, for the back tree design, right? And knit until the second marker of the tummy, which I already decide, that part it's going to be shorter than, side and back. So knit until the second marker. This is kind of important, okay? Don't just transfer, all the tummy stitch this time. You just have to knit. And now you can remove the mid stitch marker because I don't count anymore from the mid stitch. So just keep knitting. And just like the leg hole or the leash hole, after you hit the marker, remove the marker and you have to knit one more stitch. There's a reason. Well, because the last stitch, okay, if you put those stitch onto the stitch holder, you can't really keep knitting. So you knit after the marker and transfer one back, okay, and turn around. So the working yarn attached to the stitch on the right side right now, not on the tummy side, obviously. This is why you have to knit one stitch after the marker and transfer back onto the needle. Anyway, here comes, and keep as tummy. And I am not going to the bind off for the tummy because I will reconnect again. So now you have to knit in flat. So you gotta go to the pattern in flat because it's a little bit different. It's pretty much same, but you gotta go to the follow the pattern for flat. And then side, okay, there's the few extra stitch on the side. You will decrease on right side only, okay? So that's the extra, side stitch, right? So this is how you decrease. Knit one and then SSK. Slip, slip, then knit together. SSK. This is decrease in one stitch and then knit until the back design. And then for the back design, you do whatever you have to do. I don't know which row you're on, so you just have to do the back design. And then the other side, same thing, you have to decrease one stitch because you decrease one the other side. And this side you have to use knit two together method. So you have to knit until last three stitch. Here comes. And then I will actually take that begin marker out because I don't need the begin marker anymore. There you go. And then again, this side, knit two together and knit one last stitch. And again, you're knitting in flat now, so turn around, and then decreasing row is just all purl and design for the back. And you don't really have to worry about the cable stitch, because cable stitch has to be on every right side. New technique for knitting in flat is one stitch, which is purl back loop. Okay, knit back loop on the right side. Wrong side, you have to purl back loop. Okay, here comes. In the previous row, which is right side, knit back loop. Now purl back loop. So purl back loop is back and coming from back. It's actually easier than you see. Okay, from back. There you go. That's the way. And then purl. This is the purl back loop. The working yarn has to be out front. There we go. And purl. That's the only thing, difference, pretty much. And obviously, if it's purl on the right side, it's knit, on wrong side. So if you follow the flat pattern, you're not gonna make any mistake. The only thing you have to be very careful in flat is this, purl back loop on wrong side and knit back loop on right side. Sometimes it gets confused, and once you getting used to, it's sometimes easier to make a mistake. And just keep knitting until your desired length. I stopped a little too early, because I didn't want to use the second, ball of yarn. By the way, to create this sweater, I use just about the one ball. So if you're knitting for bigger dog, maybe you need two ball of yarn. Okay, and my dog is the 10-pound Yoki. And here comes, about the 9-inch front and 10-inch at the back, right after the neck rib. Then now I decide I am going to reconnect and then finish the sweater. So reconnecting is on right side again, because reconnect and now you knit in round again. So has to be on right side. And then I am going to decrease still this side and the other side. And now the back design, it's up to you. You can do back design still, or you can just knit, across. I did last back design. And here comes the other side of the back. Again, I decrease one stitch last. So this side, knit two together, and then knit one. I decrease one here too. Then now there's no more stitch. All right, and I put the begin marker. This is the new begin. Then knit up edge of the side, and you really have to knit up on the edge, as you can see, and you have to count how many stitch you knit up because there's gotta be the other side as well, right? I knit up around 7, and then stitch count should be multiple of 2 total. However, if it's not multiple of 2, it's easy because the rib is knit 1 and purl 1, so you can actually adjust the number any time. So right now you have to focus on knit up on the side, and after you knit up this side there's gonna be the tummy stitch on the stitch holder, right? And it's easy, you can actually transfer those stitch back onto the needle, or I am going to just knit from the stitch holder. Nothing really wrong with this. I'm a little lazy that way. So, if I can knit from the stitch holder, I am going to knit from the stitch holder. So you just knit across, and then after this tummy stitch, there's the other side of the edge. You have to knit up, right? And then knit across, and once you across and hit the beginning marker, you will start knitting rib. It's very easy and almost end of the sweater. Here comes rib. Repeat of knit 1 and purl 1, same as the neck. Repeat of knit 1 and purl 1 until your desired length. From the second row, it's easy. Knit over knit stitch and purl over purl stitch. Another word, you have to be very careful on the first row, and if the stitch count is not the multiple of 2, you can adjust the number, like knit 2 together to decrease 1, pretty much it. And whenever you hit your desired length for rib, you have to do bind off. And again, I did stretchy bind off, which is this time knit 1 and purl 1. So if it's purl, usually I put the yarn front, but this time you keep the working yarn at the back, okay, not the front, at the back, then purl, which means you create 1 stitch there, right? There you go, see? And you create the 1 stitch there, then you have to bind that yarn over stitch first, and then original the stitch you have to bind off. And this is the original stitch. There you go. And the next stitch is knitting, right? Which means you have to yarn front, then knit to create the 1 yarn over stitch there, and then bind yarn over stitch, then bind original stitch off. That's about it, you know. Again, if you don't like this, the stretchy cast on and stretchy bind off, you don't have to. You just do the regular cast on and bind off. But I want you to kind of try once, then see what happened. I really like it. I don't know why I haven't used this technique for a long time. I guess I was selfish because again, I was knitting my socks, and I didn't really like the tight, the ankle or whatever. And yeah, maybe I should use the stretchy bind off. Then when I was doing it and I thought about it, and maybe I should use this technique for my dog sweater. This is done. Beautiful back design. As you can see, both sides, C4FN back, and lots of crochet bubble, and 3D texture with the KBL, stretchy cast on neck, very stretchy and no tension at all. And stretchy bind off, very stretchy, no tension. It's much easier to put it on to your dog. Little wavy, but don't worry about it. Anyway, that's about it. Enjoy knitting.